Was I just an old fool? I guess that's up to you to decide. Some folks might just look at the situation and immediately jump to a conclusion. Rich guy, 44 years old, ties the knot with a gorgeous, younger woman who's only 28. Maybe for some people, that's the whole story, and there's nothing more to it. But, trust me, it wasn't nearly that simple. Maybe I was a fool at the end of it all, but not for a lack of thinking things through. For starters, we didn't rush into marriage right away. It actually took about a year and a half after we began dating before we got hitched, and she moved in with me almost a year before the wedding. And on top of that, Karen agreed, happily, I might add, to a rock-solid prenup. If things ever went south, she'd walk away with $50,000 for every year we'd been married, but no more than $500,000 total. Sure, that sounds like a decent chunk of change, but considering I was worth around $17 million at the time, I wasn't too worried she was in it just for the money. I met Karen at a fundraising dinner thrown by the Opera Company of Philadelphia. I've always done all right for myself, own my own printing business, and I've got a soft spot for opera, so I donate quite a bit. Karen was working there as a development officer, handling fundraising not only for the opera but for a few other arts organizations in the city. The night we met, she was sitting at my table, right beside my friends Art and Kathleen, who already seemed to know her well. Karen caught my eye from the very start. She's tall and really striking, with these deep, dark eyes, beautiful hair, and a figure that turns heads. She has a way of dressing that says she knows she's attractive, and she's comfortable with people noticing. We chatted here and there throughout the evening and even shared a couple of dances. I left that night thinking she was definitely someone I wanted to get to know better. I'd been single for a long time. My first marriage to my high school sweetheart ended when I was still in my early 20s. By the time I met Karen, I'd built a successful business and was doing well financially, so I felt confident enough to ask out a woman like her, even with the age difference. At 43, I was still in good shape. I made a point to hit the gym regularly and ran about 6 miles, 3 times a week. I knew I wasn't a young buck anymore, but I took pride in staying fit. From the start, I genuinely liked Karen, and she seemed to like me right back. I respected her drive and the way she handled her work, and she seemed to appreciate my own success, not to mention my sense of humor and the time we spent together. It wouldn't be honest if I didn't admit that part of the attraction for me was Karen's youth and her looks. And I'm sure my money didn't hurt my chances with her, either. That's just the reality, and I never felt embarrassed about it. Around our 4th date, I discovered that Karen had a real passion for intimacy. She was open, enthusiastic, and very affectionate. I'd dated my share of women, but being with her was something else. She brought an excitement and energy I hadn't known before. She loved physical closeness, and she enjoyed being playful and adventurous with me. We were both pretty comfortable with each other, and it made our relationship even better. Before too long, we were spending most nights together, and after about 6 months I asked if she'd move in. Once we started living under the same roof, things just kept improving. We both had busy careers, but we still found time for each other, especially in the evenings. Karen was younger than me, but she was smart and sophisticated, and she fit right in with my older friends and colleagues. Getting married started to feel like the natural next step. So, when the anniversary of our first date rolled around in March, I popped the question, and she said yes. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved Karen, but I wasn't blind to reality. I always tried to approach life with a clear head. Of course, I worried about the possibility that she might be attracted by my bank account, especially given our age difference and her looks. But she agreed to the prenup without so much as a raised eyebrow. I was also aware that, while Karen was exciting and fun, she wasn't perfect. She was clever, but maybe not quite as sharp as me. In business, you have to be good at reading people, seeing through motives and hidden agendas, and I prided myself on being pretty good at that. Karen could hold her own, but she didn't have quite the same knack for it. Early on in our engagement, I felt the need to have a serious talk, a kind of conversation we didn't have all that often. Karen, I told her one night, I want to bring something up that I hope you'll think over. You don't have to answer right now, take an hour, or even sleep on it if you'd like. She looked a bit surprised but nodded. Of course, sweetheart. I took a deep breath. You know I love you, and I'm honestly over the moon that you agreed to marry me. But there's a real age gap between us. I'm more of a morning person, not much for parties or late nights the way you are. I also don't always have as much energy as you do, and let's face it, that might become a bigger deal 10 or 20 years from now. And, as happy as I am with our love life, I can't help but worry that I might slow down before you're ready for that. She started to respond, but I gently put up a hand to stop her. Please, let me finish. I want you to think about this, because marrying me means you're signing up for 30 or 40 years together. And you know this about me already, I'm a one-woman man, and I need my wife to be the same with me. If you think that, someday, if I can't keep up, you might just quietly look for someone else to fill in the gaps, then let's call it off right now. I couldn't handle that. If you're at all worried that I might not be enough for you, in any way, then let's end things now while we're still on good terms. I asked her to really consider what I'd said, and suggested we talk again later. She nodded, looking thoughtful, and wandered off. I'll admit, I was nervous about how my little speech would land, but I knew it needed to be said. Later that night, I was reading in bed when Karen came in. She smiled at me softly and slipped into the bathroom to change. When she came out, she was wearing a little cami, and I couldn't help but be reminded how beautiful she was. She didn't say anything, just climbed into bed with me, pulling me close, and showing me in her own affectionate way how she felt. That night, any doubts I had about our connection seemed to fade away. I lay back, letting Karen take the lead. She was much gentler than usual, and I couldn't help but notice the warmth of her body and the way her cami fit her. It seemed like she had a particular idea in mind that night, because she kept the same steady, unhurried rhythm for quite a while. The two of us gradually built up, reaching the peak together. She managed to bring me to a breathless finish, all without ever speeding things up. A moment later, I could tell she'd found her own moment too. Once she caught her breath, Karen nestled in next to me, and we shared a few slow, affectionate kisses. After a few minutes of lying there together, she propped herself up on one elbow and gave me a mischievous look. I guess that's how old folks do it, slow and steady, so I figured we should give it a shot. Now we know what it'll be like in 20 years, she teased. Before I could get a word in, she leaned down and kissed me again. I've thought about what you said, Eric. And here's my answer, you're the only one I want. I love you. You're more than enough for me, and I want to be your young bride forever. We got married 4 months later, in August, right there in the backyard on a sunny day. Like I said before, I loved Karen, but I was never oblivious. I enjoyed our life together, but I kept my eyes open. If she was late for something, if a strange phone call came through, or she seemed down for no clear reason, it all got logged in the back of my mind. I never confronted her about any of it, because nothing ever added up to anything serious. Still, I kept watch. After we'd been married about 4 years, Karen started an affair. She couldn't have picked a worse person, Mark Thompson, one of my junior vice presidents. Mark was a talented guy, one of my top employees, but I never would have expected him to cross that line. I always said I was a little better at reading people than Karen, and it didn't take me long to figure out what was going on. The affair started in early February. Within 2 weeks, I was almost sure of it, and with a private investigator's help, I had solid evidence in about 10 days. The whole situation was, frankly, a familiar one. Karen wanted to go out more often than I did, she'd head to parties or fundraisers on her own, and I guess she started feeling left out or bored by staying home with me. I was 48, she was 32, I can see how she might have felt restless. She'd met Mark at my office, and as foolish as it was for him to get involved with his boss's wife, Karen was attractive enough that he took the risk. They were careful, meeting only during the day and only at his place, but I'm pretty good at picking up on small changes, and I noticed the subtle ways Karen's behavior shifted. Eventually, the truth came out. I confronted her, she tried to deny it, but when I showed her some photos I had of her with Mark, she broke down. There were tears, apologies, the whole script. It didn't mean anything, Eric, it was just physical, it never had anything to do with you. I love you. I'll do anything to fix this. I'm ashamed. You know how those conversations go. I just listened. By the time she confessed, I'd already done my crying alone. I'd taken those long, lonely walks, dealing with that tight pain in my stomach and the fury of jealousy that just wouldn't let go. I'd already pictured every detail in my mind, no matter how much I tried not to. What did I want to do now? Honestly, I wasn't sure. Part of me had always known that marrying a younger, attractive woman came with certain risks. Maybe being half prepared for something like this helped me handle it a little better. Then again, maybe not. The pain wasn't any less. Finally, I cut through her sobbing apologies. Karen, I said, sounding as tired as I felt, you say you want to stay with me. Why? She looked stunned. Because I love you, Eric. I always have, ever since we met. Yeah, but loving me didn't stop you from breaking my trust in the worst possible way, did it? She just looked at the floor, silent. I took a breath. I told her there was a chance I might stay with her, but only if she agreed to my conditions. She was eager, promising she'd do whatever it took, clinging to me like she'd never let go. So, I laid it all out. First, she had to end things with Mark, and she couldn't tell him that I'd found out, he was never to know I knew. Second, she had to go to marriage counseling with me. Third, I told her that if she ever cheated again, or even gave me reason to think she had, that was it, she'd be out of my life for good. She agreed to everything. She was thankful, still crying, hugging me tight. I hugged her back, but honestly, I just felt hollow inside. Was I doing the right thing? I really didn't know. We started marriage counseling. For a while, it seemed to help. Karen was deeply sorry, and she took responsibility for what she'd done. The counselor walked her through the pain her actions had caused, and Karen owned up to all of it. But then things got tougher. The counselor wanted to dig deeper. Why had Karen done what she did? What did it mean for our relationship, for her, and for me? What needs or problems were lurking beneath the surface? Karen struggled with this level of honesty. She got defensive, upset, and eventually, she stopped coming to the sessions altogether. I kept going by myself for a few more weeks. The counselor was blunt, he didn't have high hopes for us. I think Karen loves you, and I believe she's truly sorry. But the fact that she won't face the reasons behind her actions doesn't bode well, Eric. I'm not saying all is lost, but I can't say I'm confident, either. I just sighed. I don't have much confidence left either, I told him. But thank you for trying to help us. From here on, I guess I'm on my own. Karen put in a real effort to make things right between us. She started turning down invitations for nights out, spent more time at home, and even dusted off some cookbooks to try her hand at new recipes. She also did her best to show her affection in the bedroom. Our physical relationship had always been strong, probably better than most couples who'd been married as long as we had, but now it felt like we were living out every page of the Kama Sutra. Karen knew how much I was drawn to her, and I guess she figured the best way to win me back was to make sure I couldn't take my mind off her. Truth be told, the only way I could be with her now was by putting some emotional distance between us. It didn't feel like I was making love to the wife I once adored and trusted. Instead, it was like reliving some of those wild, casual encounters from my single days, exciting, athletic, but missing the deeper connection we once had. While we were together, I enjoyed it for what it was. But afterward, I'd often find myself wide awake, wandering around the house, feeling the ache of lost trust. I missed what we used to have. Still, I had to give Karen credit. She was really trying. I had no idea if our marriage could ever bounce back, but she didn't seem ready to give up. That June, I suggested we get away for a couple of weeks that summer, just the two of us at the Jersey Shore. Karen was all for it, so I found us a great little condo right on the beach in Avalon for the first half of August. A couple of weeks after I booked the place, Karen came to me acting uncharacteristically shy. She wouldn't meet my eyes and asked if we could change our vacation dates. She explained that her sister and the kids were planning to visit Philly but couldn't come until early August, so she wanted to go to Avalon in July instead. I agreed, but deep down, I felt a twinge of suspicion. At that point, I was on high alert, every little change set off alarms in my head. I didn't know what to make of it, but I was definitely paying attention. The first week in Avalon was great. We had plenty of privacy and an incredible view. I got up early to run on the beach, picked up the paper, and made breakfast for us. Afterwards, we'd usually share some intimate time, then spend the rest of the day outside enjoying the sun. Evenings were relaxed, we'd go to a laid-back restaurant, or sometimes Karen would cook. We'd read, watch TV, and most nights, end up in bed together again. Honestly, we must have been together a dozen times that first week, not bad for a guy closing in on 50. I started to feel optimistic, thinking maybe we were finally reconnecting and moving forward. But as soon as the second week began, things changed. On Monday, Karen seemed restless and distracted all day. Around lunchtime, she said she wanted to go shopping for a bit. When she came back hours later, she was practically glowing, in a great mood, totally at ease. I kept my doubts to myself, but deep down, I wondered if she'd been with someone else. I had no idea who or where, but my suspicions were running wild. I asked her about her shopping trip, listened to her answers, but I didn't press. I just watched her even more closely. Wednesday was a repeat of the same story. After lunch, Karen told me she was heading out to the Acme, the only local grocery store, to pick up some things. I asked if she wanted me to tag along, but she brushed it off, saying I should enjoy the beach. She came back right before 5, arms full of groceries, and made a great dinner. Once again, she was cheerful and full of energy, and that night she pulled me into bed early for a night that was both passionate and confusing. I was torn between happiness and this gnawing suspicion I just couldn't shake. The next morning, after my usual run, I walked back to the condo with the newspaper and nearly dropped it when I saw the front page: 3 alarm blaze destroys Acme supermarket. Over coffee, I read the article. Turns out the store had burned down at 11 a.m. the previous day, right about when Karen said she was shopping there. Whatever she'd been up to, it wasn't buying groceries at the Acme. That's when I knew I needed to do a little more digging. Around 8:30, I called Karen's sister to chat about her upcoming visit, just making conversation. Casually, I asked why she couldn't come earlier in the summer. "Oh, any week was fine with me," she said, almost without thinking. Then she stumbled, the kids had some doctor's appointments. And we really couldn't miss those." I didn't push, just wrapped up the call after a few more minutes of small talk. Next, I called Kathleen, my office manager, to ask if Mark Thompson was in yet. She put me on hold, then came back and said he'd taken the week off. I asked if she knew where he was. After a pause, she told me his secretary had no clue. He'd been secretive about this vacation, which was unlike him. Kathleen had been with me for 15 years. I trusted her like family. "Look, Kathleen," I said, "I need you to handle something unpleasant for me, okay? Mark's fired, effective immediately. Please prepare the termination letter and sign it for me. When he returns on Monday, have 2 of our security people meet him at the door, escort him to his office, give him 30 minutes to pack, and then walk him out. At the same time, I want 2 others to go to his house and collect his company laptop. There's sensitive information on it, and I can't risk it getting out." "Of course, Eric," Kathleen replied, sounding a bit shocked. "Can you tell me what's going on?" "In a few days, Kathleen, but not right now. Also, I'd plan to be back on Monday, but I'll be gone a little longer. I'll call and let you know how to reach me. If you hear from Karen, please don't tell her where I am. And one more thing, the list of credit cards for both Karen and me is in my desk. Please call and cancel everything except my corporate American Express. Lastly, I need you to hire a locksmith to change all the locks on my house. You can hold on to the new keys, and I'll get them from you when I'm back in town." "All right, Eric, and if it's as bad as it sounds, I'm really sorry." I thanked her and hung up. There were just a couple more moves left in this sad little game. I made breakfast for Karen and took it to her in bed. She gave me a sleepy smile and a kiss, and we ate together. Afterwards, she wanted a shower, but I pulled her back to bed. Knowing this would be the last time, I took it slow. I lingered over every hug, every kiss, memorizing her touch. I let myself enjoy the moment, even as a part of me was already saying goodbye. The sense of loss was almost overwhelming. I couldn't help but think of everything I'd poured into our marriage, now slipping away. Eventually, my patience wore thin. The tenderness gave way to a need for something more physical, maybe out of anger, maybe just from feeling so empty. There wasn't any love left in it by then, just a final, cold goodbye. The final twist of fate was that we reached our peak together, both of us loud and breathless, caught up in the moment. Afterwards, we lay there, tangled in the sheets, both of us a bit sweaty and trying to catch our breath. Karen looked over at me with a grin. "Not too shabby for an old guy," she joked, letting out a laugh. Then her expression softened and she looked me right in the eyes. "I love you, Eric," she said, her voice serious. But I just couldn't say it back. Instead, I gave her a long look, leaned in to give her a light kiss, and said, "Time for your shower." We walked to the bathroom together, both of us still bare, arms around each other. I gave her another kiss, and then watched as she stepped into the shower, closing the glass door behind her and turning away to adjust the water. That's when I quietly slipped out, taking my toiletry bag, her robe, and every towel in the room with me. I closed the bathroom door behind me and dropped everything on the bed. Knowing Karen's habit of taking long showers, I figured I had about 15 minutes to work with. I quickly packed my things, tossing my clothes and my kit into my suitcase. Then I grabbed 2 big garbage bags. Into the first, I stuffed all of Karen's clothes. Into the second, I packed up anything in the condo she might use to cover herself: the bed sheets, comforter, mattress pad, every towel and extra sheet from the closet, even the curtains from both rooms. I made another sweep of the place, collecting anything that could be used as makeshift clothing, plastic and paper grocery bags, trash bags, every newspaper and magazine I could find. Once I was sure I'd grabbed everything, I hauled it all out to the car and loaded up the trunk with both bags and my suitcase. There was just one thing left. I went back inside and found Karen's purse. It had her keys, wallet, and her cell phone inside. I picked it up, and as I was leaving, I unplugged the condo phone and took it with me, too, just to make sure she'd have no easy way to call for help right away. About an hour and a half later, I was at the Philadelphia airport. I booked myself a flight to Seattle, figured I'd surprise an old college buddy and his wife with a visit. Why not? After everything, I needed to get away and clear my head. Sadness and anger wrestled inside me on that drive and as I waited for my flight. But as I sat down in my seat and fastened the belt, I let myself hang on to a grim little sense of satisfaction. Maybe I was a fool, maybe I'd gotten played, but at least I'd managed to give as good as I got. I couldn't help but smile a bit to myself, thinking about the look on Karen's face when she stepped out of that shower and realized what had happened.